Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Nacho Tuesday. And here I have Isaac today with Papermap AI. And without further ado, we would love if you can introduce yourself and your company, what you guys do over there.
Yeah. Hey, Andy. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. My name is Isaac. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO at Papermap. So at Papermap, we are building a new kind of AI native data platform, and it's purpose built for business users to query structured data deterministically. So how we differ from existing solutions is that we help our users solve technical decisions where existing solutions expect them to hire technical people to solve, right? So we abstract away all the complex stuff that has to do with data, building pipelines, data engineering, cleaning data. So all our business users have to do is just query it with natural language queries. So that's what we do.
Very interesting. When did you guys start the company?
So we started around mid 2025. Actually, how we started is pretty funny because it was actually because of the frustration of my co-founder and CTO always getting requests from his marketing team for to write SQL queries to see what's happening with the users, etc. So we started out by actually building an inventory management platform layered with AI. But we realized that the upside for the analytics was a much bigger opportunity than just building the inventory platform. So eventually we decided to build that AI native data platform, because the inventory management platform at the end of the day was just one of the pipelines that the business needs to truly do a holistic, sort of analytics. So what we are today is a step above where we bring in data across sources so that users can query their data holistically.
Yeah, I definitely can resonate with that as a marketing person asking the technical team for stuff all the time.
Yeah, I feel that.
Sounds like your platform might alleviate some of those requests so I don't have to annoy them.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. I would love if you could describe maybe for people that haven't learned about Agentic AI and what it does. Can you tell us more about Agentic AI and what it is and how you can better utilize it for your company?
Yeah, totally. So, just a quick sort of education. So, the way we see the market playing out today and how people know it is sort of, on one end, you have like consumer AI, which is, ChatGPT, Grok, and the other LLMs. And then when you look across the pond on the extreme side, you have, enterprise data. So, platforms like Databricks, Snowflake help enterprises leverage their internal data in an agentic way, etc. So the way we saw it was that like those are the two extremes, but in the middle, businesses that have sort of outgrown Excel sheets and all these other platforms struggle to actually leverage this agentic AI. All they know, and the funny thing is like, if businesses don't actually execute on agentic AI, their employees end up throwing their proprietary data into ChatGPT anyway, right?
Yeah.
Which is why we decided to build, something in between for growth stage businesses where they can leverage agentic AI on their proprietary data. Our platform is, SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA compliant, so you have that logged in. And then we also leverage the enterprise APIs of all the large models, so you can be rest assured that your proprietary business data is not being trained on or anything like that, right?
Mhm.
And so that allows businesses to then, go a step further when it comes to an intelligent platform for this decision making. So instead of using Excel sheets, wrangling around for tons of time, you are actually able to execute, what we call data at the speed of business, right? So when your data comes in, you're not sitting around, wrangling with some busy work, but you're actually making decisions based on that data.
Yeah, especially in today's world with AI tools, the speed of business is critical to be able to get a product to market and build a company. Because if you're not working with AI tools like this to make better decisions faster, you're not going to be able to compete with your competitors that are going to be looking for a tool like Papermap to help close that decision gap there.
100% agree. Yeah.
And do you think this disproportionately affects different teams within the organization? You mentioned marketing. What other parts of the team really suffer from these decision gaps because they're not able to leverage currently, unless they use a tool like yours, able to leverage tools like this to be able to identify trends and analysis and then make better decisions based on that?
Yeah, so I'll just start by speaking a bit to what the decision gap is. So the decision gap is basically when a data event happens, right? So that is some sort of data hits your database on the back end. So the time between that happening and then the business actually leveraging that, to strategize and sort of act on it. And it, like you mentioned, it proportionately, I would even go a step further above and speak more towards like businesses that are of a certain size, right? So if you take businesses that are anywhere between like 10 and 100 million, they are, disproportionately affected by this because the data tools that exist today were not built with them in mind, right?
Yep.
So, if you take Snowflake, Databricks, the way it's set up is that, not only do you have to worry about the licenses to use them, but you have to hire, you know, a data team that is skilled enough to actually help you leverage them. You have to, then think about execution and BI platforms like Power BI and Tableau. So all those three things I just listed go in tandem. So that just means that companies of a certain revenue size are just locked out purely because it's not gonna make any sense for their capex, right?
Yep.
So the reason why we decided to build Papermap, which is like a new way of thinking about the problem, which takes care of not only the platform bit, so your Snowflake or whatever else is taken care of, the tooling bit. So if I'm an operations manager, I don't need to, hire somebody else to actually leverage the data. All I need to worry about is semantic information, which nobody knows better than the ops manager themselves, right? And then also the intelligence layer bit, which is when I ask natural language queries, we've built agents that are able to transform that queries into the required data and then pull from the right tables and columns in order to visualize that and leverage that for decision making, which drastically cuts down the decision gap that we are talking about.
Yep. And what other common scenarios do you see for non-technical teams struggling with this? What other common use cases do you see where Papermap might be able to apply?
Yeah, so I think chief among them will be, the Excel scenario I was describing, and I think most of us have run into that where,
Nobody likes
you know,
those.
yeah, there will be like, five different versions of Excel, and everyone is saying theirs is like the one true copy or something
Okay.
like this,
Yeah.
right? So we help teams bring together, stuff like that into a version controlled, access controlled, data that people can query based on their roles and permissions. So we are seeing that a lot. And then we're also seeing the marketing use case a lot where we are actually currently helping an apparel brand bring in their ad data across their platforms, reference that with their sales data and their inventory data, and they're able to iterate on that to optimize for SKU performance, to see what they need to re-up on their inventory, stuff like that. So those are some of the use cases that we are seeing.
And some very important ones nonetheless. Yeah, I probably need something like this actually, because I could speak from personal experience, especially
Yeah.
from the advertising standpoint, trying to compare across multiple campaigns which ones are actually performing, and it's a lot of busy work, right? But AI is really good at this kind of stuff, going in and looking for trends and formalizing that into a nice little summary for you.
100% agree. Yeah. Yeah.
What other kind of lessons have you learned as a founder bringing this product to market and building a company?
Yeah, so I think what I've learned is like we really underestimate how much you know businesses know about themselves, right, or know about their customer, which is to say that like really what locks them out is the technical things that they need to actually get to the other side where they can feel that, they are really making strategic decisions. And so what happens is like they tend to make decisions based on sort of, I want to say vibes, but
Yeah.
if they leverage their data more, they could really, make a lot more damage. And I think that like because we are the part of the market and how we are seeing it at least is that like if you take the term SMB, like companies in the US that qualify for that sort of definition,
Yep.
it's around like 33 million or something like this, right? And they account for half of the US GDP, but also almost half of the workforce, right? So that's a really important sort of part of the economy. So the realization we have come to is that like this is like such a big piece of the pie that nobody is like really building AI for them,
Yep.
but they will be a very important piece of even the post sort of AGI economy, right?
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people like to go for enterprise because it sounds fancy to close one deal and get a big paycheck, but there's only so many of those to go around. There's a
Yeah.
lot of small businesses out there that definitely need the help and uh, definitely need the help leveraging AI tools like this. So,
Yeah, for sure. And we also cannot, leave them behind, right? Like if enterprises are going to move fast, and the economy is going to work, we have to drag along the, small and mid-sized businesses along with them. Yeah.
yep. Yeah, and a lot of them are just looking for good tools that at a great price point. So yours, it's a lot of upside value for them.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So we also optimize, you know, in addition to the infrastructure bit, is also the tooling part, which I mentioned, where if you're getting a tool that solves for your problems and you don't have to like worry about the outward sort of consultant or technical person to help you interpret it, it then becomes easier, and also the time required. And like actually another use case we are seeing a lot is like, typically you ask your data person to, spin up some sort of dashboard and then they provide it to you. But what happens if you want to like double click on something that, they built that you find interesting, right? Then
Yep.
you're back into that same workflow again. But with Papermap, like you're able to actually drill down to find root causes, because the way I like to describe it is that the business people are actually you know, the inhabitants, and the data people are like tourists, right? Like you
Mm.
provide the data to them, they're tourists, they look at it, and then they, provide some sort of visual. But the business person is the one that's living in the day to day and can actually, you know, take that data and actually strategize and execute on it.
Yeah, and they need to clarify what does this data actually mean too, and be
Yeah,
able to make good decisions based off it.
exactly.
When did you guys notice that you had your aha moment, I guess, with your customers, that you knew you really had something here with your customer base and could build a company around this?
Yeah. So, actually, like I was mentioning, because of the origin story of actually starting with the, inventory management platform, we realized that this technology really could work in any sort of platform, right? So the way I like to describe it is that, like most businesses, or I guess most pieces of software, have some sort of dashboard component, like in their app. But true analytics isn't just having a dashboard that is just your data in their platform, because for businesses, they need to have specific platforms for specific workflows depending on what they do. So this idea of being able to pull data across different sources as a business and kind of iterate on that was such a big revealing moment for us.
Mm.
And also another sort of non obvious thing that we have discovered is like, you know, how we have seen the internet being built is that, the way software usually is the infrastructure is pretty straightforward. You have some sort of UI, you have authentication, and then you have like a structured database on the back end, right? So we figured like building a UI that actually empowers business users to query structured databases deterministically is a very powerful proposition, because most software is built on structured databases anyway, right? So that was sort of the aha moment for us. We are working with some partners to actually also embed this API inside their own applications, where their clients can also ask these natural language questions and deterministically extract data from their platforms,
Wow,
in a multi-tenant architecture.
very powerful. Yeah, so it's almost like you don't even need a data team anymore to make better decisions. So this is why it works really well for small businesses.
Yeah. I mean, on the data team bit, I think data people are still going to be really important. I saw a statistic by the IDC that was saying that like data as we know it, like 80% of data in the world was generated in the last 2 years. And
Yep.
that is going to continue. That trend is going to continue, and data is going to double every 4 years, right? So
Mm.
the point I'm trying to make with that is like we definitely by no means like capped in terms of data expertise, because we're actually going to get more data. So if anything, data people are going to be more all the more important. The reason why we are picking the part of the market that we are is that we typically realize that they do not have these infrastructure in place, and
Yep.
so it makes more sense for them, and then the ROI is sort of higher for them to sort of get into this agentic AI
Yep.
era.
Great. Any lessons you would offer for entrepreneurs that might be starting their first company?
I think it's really important to actually talk to customers, right? So, sometimes we have a hunch about, an opportunity, but it's really important to talk to customers, listen to them about what the daily workflows are and how your solution actually helps them solve that. And then also realizing the part of the market where you can actually play and make, impact. So, those have been some very important lessons for us.
Yeah, yeah, definitely figuring out what your unique selling proposition is. Like, are you bringing something to the market that's unique, that's going to add value to people over what the existing options are, or
Yeah.
it's going to be super price competitive, whatever that unique selling proposition may be. Yeah, I feel like a lot of times entrepreneurs get excited about building,
Yeah.
especially for technical. Sometimes you just want to build something, and it's kind of like a form of art, if you will.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you just get going down this one path, building something, and forget to ask your customers what they think about it, or if they
Yeah.
even want that thing in the first place.
No, yeah. And then what I would even add to that is like now that, actually building has sort of become ubiquitous, like you can sort of spin up a MVP, like overnight, literally.
Yeah,
The true sort of modes now is actually being able to connect with your customers, right? Which makes the point you made about your USP being really important. So definitely agree with that.
definitely. Yeah, I guess what are some other common questions that you see non-technical founders using on Papermap to look at data and analyze it?
Yeah, so the questions actually are kind of across the board. And the way I would sort of approach it is kind of how we are approaching the problem, right? So an easy way that users can think about Papermap is not only just as a piece of software, but also as your AI sort of execution layer, right? So what I mean by that is like we help our users one build a really good data foundation, right? And what that looks like is like agents are only as good as the data that you give them,
Yep,
right? So the ability to able to bring the data into sort of one environment is really important in the agentic AI framework. And then also another point that is very important is also the roles and permissions that these agents sort of take on, right? So how we think about it is that the agent should take on the role of the human user that they personify, right?
Yep.
So by that, then you know that whatever sort of questions that you're putting into the agent, the human is getting the answers that the business wants them to get, right? So we are seeing, in the logistics sphere, questions that help improve throughput. So we have a partner. We are helping them with their fulfillment needs, and so their support team are able to go in, ask the number of fulfillments that were made for a particular vendor, and Alan, our AI agent, can spin up that number for you just with a natural language query. Like I also referenced, we are seeing that with an apparel partner that is using Papermap for the SKU performance tracking. What is the best day to even do ads to get more sales in, I don't know, the New York Knicks jersey or something like this, right? So it's across the board, but because Papermap is deterministic in that sense, where when you make a query, you can actually track exactly the tables that the agent pulled the data from, and if it's at fault, you can actually correct it, and then actually get the best sort of results out of it, which is what we like to say is enabling business users to query structured data deterministically.
Sounds very simple and easy to use.
Yeah.
How do you guys handle like messy or unstructured data? I'm sure you guys kind of have a process for kind of mapping it. Maybe do you guys like highlight like maybe like key points in the data that might be missing, or there might be potential errors, and flagging that for the human in the loop to provide feedback on, or how do you guys
Yeah.
manage that?
Yeah, totally. So, during the, the onboarding on the platform, there are like unique sort of ways to structure the data that we recommend to our users. So, we actually do really well with just the raw data itself, like, just the headers and then just the columns and stuff without sort of like formulas if you're using Excel as an example. And then for integrations with other platforms and the traditional databases, it's pretty straightforward being able to just bring them in. But the agent is also, we've built in a fail-safe sort of feature. So for example, if there's like white spaces in your data, it's able to self-correct. And so when you make a query, and in the particular column that it's supposed to pull the data from, if it has white spaces, it's able to self-correct and then eventually give you the right sort of analysis that should happen. So, that's sort of how we are looking at, messy data today.
You guys really thought through everything. So I guess we'd love to hear about like an exciting case story, like a customer that you worked with, that you took from a 0 to 1. I guess if you will, would you be able to highlight something like that?
Yeah. So, the use case that I personally, like is again the logistics use case that I was mentioning, right? So just to sort of describe the case study. So before, the way they were doing things was like there's an Excel sheet, there's vendors, and then there's sort of their orders. And the sheer idea of the human sort of error bit and how long it took them to get things done in Excel manually,
Yep.
versus then having a database connected and then basically that turnover being in seconds, right? So if you're curious about a business question, how you transform that into SQL and Python queries is totally handled for you on the technical side. And so, like the amount of hours that you're able to save and the amount of work you're able to get done is truly astronomical in that sense. And really, we are in the early days of that partnership, but you can already see how that can really transform, how a business is run, in a way where data is at the speed of business, and so decisions are being made rooted in the data, and ensuring the business is operating at a very high level.
Yep. And you mentioned earlier about integrations. You mentioned an API as well. I'm a big fan of integrations. I believe it's critical for products these days. People
Yeah.
like to work the way they like to work. So if you can take a great new tool like you have and integrate it into their existing workflows, it's super powerful. I would love if you can maybe deep dive more into some of the integrations that you guys have and how you guys help streamline that process for people.
Yeah, totally. So we have a really tight sort of roadmap for these integrations. So currently on the traditional databases side, we support Postgres, MySQL, and a bunch of others. And then on the sort of normal human databases, if you want to call them. Like we support Excel, Google Sheets, we support CSV files as well. And then on the integration side, we currently have QuickBooks built. We have Stripe also built, and then Google Analytics as well. And with the pipeline, we are really sort of prioritizing based on clients, but it's something that we are gonna add more as a company. We hold the position that like the data you give the agent is really what makes it exceptional. And so if we can do an integration that can really drive positive outcomes, we love to do that, right? So it's something that we are adding as we go, but the way we see it, we are going to have to add incrementally more to help our client base.
Absolutely. And where do you see agentic AI heading in the next 1 to 3 years for business teams? Sounds like there's a lot going on really quickly right now across the market.
Yeah.
As you say, a lot of great tools. Yours is, actually relatively unique to a lot of other tools I see.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, very powerful.
Yeah. So what what personally I think is that like on the sort of observability side, we are still yet to lock it down. Right. So if you take the simple problem of like UI for business users to query structured data, it's really a big problem in our industry, and it's something that even the big boys are still sort of trying to look at. And so the way I see it, after we sort of deal with the observability and the observation bit of agentic AI, right, where we are now getting more deterministic outcomes from the agents, we'll move to a layer where there's going to be more sort of orchestration for things that are automated, obviously with a human in the loop in very important sort of situations, what we call like there will be a higher standard of care in some very important verticals, like for example healthcare, etc., where there's a lot of like PII information and stuff like this. So yeah, really what I see is like still sort of locking down the observability observation workflows, but eventually we're going to see more orchestration.
Interesting. And do you see agentic AI tools replacing a lot of technical roles or augmenting them, or do you think it's going to create new opportunities for people? It's always the time old question of will AI take our jobs?
Yeah. Personally, I don't think so, especially when it comes to data. What I see though is that the role is going to be different, right? So what I think is that, if you think about sort of like an orchestra and then a conductor, it's going to be more of like, if you're a data engineer, it's probably going to look more like a data engineering manager, right? Where you'll be orchestrating a bunch of agents to automate the sort of the root parts of the work, which is like writing queries over and over. And if you think about it, now that we are leveraging tools like Cursor and Lovable to write code, right? So I think I saw a statistic where even at Microsoft, 30% of the code is built by AI, right? So if you even look at it from a demand and supply perspective, because we are writing more code, we are going to need more resources to process more data, right?
Yeah.
So we are by no means going to eliminate data people, but what I think is that the role is going to look more like who thinks more architecturally and who thinks more about business problems and how to get sort of solutions to drive business profits.
Very exciting. So what's talking about exciting? What's next for Papermap? What are you guys looking forward to over the next couple of years? Any exciting features that you could share with our audience coming out, or where do you see the company in 5 years?
Yeah, totally. So for us, in the next 5 years, we are looking to really drill down on the growth stage businesses, ICP, and really help them to sort of drive business decision making in a really efficient way. And also our embedding products that I mentioned is something that we are really excited about as well, right? Where businesses that generate a lot of data, you know, across verticals. It could be like a fintech, and then a merchant is getting tons of transaction data, and then they are having to export a bunch of CSV and Excel files in order to process the data. What we see is that eventually, by leveraging Papermap, you can embed an agent where your merchants are not only going to get your value proposition of helping them collect payments, but then also being able to use that payment data to inform, business decision making, right? Another thing that we're also very excited about is the orchestration bit that I was mentioning. So as we lock down the observability, reporting, metrics and KPI tracking, eventually we are also excited about how do we, automate the inventory count, to send an email to our supplier, for example, right?
Yep.
So, those are things that we are very excited about.
Sounds like you have a great vision. You're already kind of thinking a couple steps ahead, which is always good to see as a founder.
Appreciate that, Andy.
Where can people learn more about your company and pick up your guys' platform today?
Totally. So, people can learn more about Papermap at, papermap.ai. We are also very active on LinkedIn, Instagram, and also on X. And, actually, we are hosting a live demo session, believe it or not, this week on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So, people can log on and see how the platform looks like.
Awesome. Yeah, reach out to Isaac if you have any questions about that. It sounds like a great demo. Yeah, definitely, Isaac. Look forward to seeing you at our next Founder VC Happy Hour in New York City. I'll send you the invite for that. Also, NachoNacho is proud partners of Papermap. You can grab it today in NachoNacho's B2B SaaS and AI marketplace. Looking forward to a great partnership. Love your guys' product. And I think you have a lot of fans here too. So I think a lot of people like your product as well too. So very excited to see what you guys do next.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, bud. Bye.
Bye.